Knowing what to do was never the hard part. Becoming someone who actually does it, that's the whole game, baby. Hello, my generational change makers. Today, I want to talk about something a little bit different. I think we do a lot of conversations around here around the mechanics of getting out of debt and managing your money. But today, I want to talk about a mindset piece of managing your money, and that is the mindset of trusting yourself. A few weeks ago, I was at lunch with some of my other coaching friends, and I'll be honest, I wasn't even paying attention to what they were talking about. My mind was somewhere else entirely. But one of them said something that pulled me right back into the conversation. And she said, trusting yourself is just doing what you'll say you'll do over and over again. And that broke my brain just a little bit because for so long, I had been looking at trusting yourself as this philosophical, abstract enlightenment moment that you come to when you've done enough work on yourself. Like one day you'll arrive at this point where you trust yourself. And sitting in that table and hearing Gina say that, I realized in that moment that I had been making this way more complicated than it had to be. And I realized that that's not what it is at all. It's not a feeling that you wait for. It's a decision that you make. You decide who you're going to be, and then you show up as that person over and over again. I spent a few days chewing on this idea, and then I realized that that is exactly what I had done in my debt payoff journey. I just never called it that. So I want to spend this episode talking about trusting yourself. In 2020, I lost my job. And this was the first time in my adult life I had ever been unemployed. It was the global pandemic, and like everybody else, right, I was unemployed for the first time in my life. I had no savings, had about $18,000 in credit card debt, and I was still paying on that subpar loan that I told you guys about. When I finally got back on my feet, I told myself that this would be the last time that had ever happened to me. Prior to that, I had been on this hamster wheel of financial instability. I was making good money, but I hadn't yet learned how to manage the income. I found myself on this perpetual cycle of paying off debt, getting back in debt, paying off debt, getting back in debt. And I had never really been able to save money. And so I told myself that this was it. This was the last time that this would happen to me. And I've told that story a million times over. I used to think that losing everything, hitting my version of bottom, is what helped me rebuild. And it didn't. It just forced the decision. What actually changed me was everything that came after that. I started showing up as the person who was good with her money, even before I believed it. And I want to get really specific here on what that looked like, because showing up can sound as a nice, vague phrase when it's actually the opposite of vague. It is the small, repetitive decisions that you make again and again. I stopped avoiding my budget. I started opening my account every single day. I went on a cash-only spending for quite some time. I showed up honest with myself, with my coach, and in the relationships of the people in my life. I stayed inside what I told myself that I would spend, and when I didn't, I told myself the truth about that. None of that felt impressive in that moment. It just felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I'm not going to say that it was easy or that it was fun. But what I didn't realize is that at that time, I was building self-trust. I was doing what I said I would do over and over again. I started showing up as the person who was good with her money, way before I ever believed it to be true. I was in the becoming process, and the difference is the proof. I wasn't affirming something that I had no evidence of. I started showing up as the person who was good with her money even before I believed it. And I want to really be clear about something. I wasn't doing it in a self-gaslighty type of way. I wasn't standing in the mirror telling myself I'm so good with money while in the background I wasn't doing anything or nothing was changing. I was in the middle of the becoming process. And the difference between self-gaslighting and becoming is the proof. Self-gaslighting is affirming something with no evidence behind it. And I'm not a therapist. I don't know if self-gaslighting is even a real term, but I imagine that self-gaslighting is affirming something that you have no evidence of, while becoming is taking a small action, small enough that you can actually follow through on it, and then letting that become the evidence. One is about the performance and the other is about the receipt. It's about the proof. And I think this is where manifestation can sometimes fall short. We do the affirmations, we do the vision boards, we say the words in the mirror, but we don't actually change anything in our life. And that is the problem. You're trying to talk yourself into feeling instead of building the track record that you can then turn around and trust. You're talking yourself into a feeling instead of doing the thing that creates the feeling. Making money is a skill, managing money is a skill, and trusting yourself is a completely different skill, and skills can be learned. None of these skills come from saying the right words to yourself. They come from doing the thing. Now, the difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it, that's something I hear pretty regularly from my clients. Someone will sit across from me and say, in their own words, some version of, I know what I'm supposed to do. I've read the books, I've listened to the podcast, I followed your work, I know the moves, I just can't seem to actually make myself do them. That's the exact gap that this entire episode is about. The space between deciding and proving it to yourself. You cannot change what you cannot see. And most of us never actually looked at the difference between I know this and I've built the evidence that I can do this. Knowing what to do was never the hard part. Becoming someone who actually does it, that's the whole game, baby. And it only happens one kept promise at a time. Now let's get practical for just a second because I can already hear your brain. Sabrina, I've tried this. I've made small promises and I never keep them. You are either picking something that is too small to matter or too big to survive real life. Pick a promise that you can keep on your worst day. Not the one that you're going to keep on your best day. Not that I'll never overspend again, because that's not realistic. Something like I'll open my bank account before I spend anything this week. I'll check my account before I go to bed today. I'll check in with my budget on Friday. Something so small that you can keep even when you're having a bad day. That's the whole promise. It has to feel so small that it almost doesn't count, because the small ones, while you're building the habit, are the ones that are going to survive the tough days, the bad days, the stressful weeks. And then plan for what you're going to do when it breaks, because it will. Life will happen. And so often I think we make these big audacious goals that are really great on our best day, but we forget what's going to happen on our worst day. The real question isn't, can I execute this perfectly? The question is, can I trust myself to respond whatever happens next? That's the actual reframe from all of this. Self-trust was never always about making the right call. It's about trusting that when you get it wrong, you'll tell yourself the truth and you'll keep going, instead of disappearing into yourself for 3 weeks because you feel like you already blew it. One missed day doesn't erase everything. It's just the next data point. And what matters is what you do the day after that. So here's what I want you to take from this episode. You don't need to wait for the crisis, the wake-up call, or the rock bottom. You just need to decide today. Pick one promise, small enough that you can actually keep it, and then do it again tomorrow and the day after that. That's when the track record starts. And if you already know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and you still feel stuck on doing it, that's usually not a I'll figure it out alone problem. That's an accountability issue. And sometimes the fastest way to build the track record is to have someone else watching you build it. I'd love to be that someone. You can book a consultation call. The link is in the show notes. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on the next episode.